just like that through the beautiful technology that is the internet. I'm joined by Jack Lapham. He's on the west coast of our beautiful country. I'm here in Franklin, Tennessee. It's balmy and hot here. It looks beautiful there. How's the weather there today?
Oh, it can't get any better. It's Oregon, and we'd like to keep it a secret in the summertime. It's basically San Diego.
That's right. You put up with all the rain in the winter, but it pays off in the summer, man. I'm telling you, when it's Chamber of Commerce weather out there on the Pacific Northwest coast, it's as beautiful as it gets, dude.
Yeah.
We're going to chop it up today about the potential or the idea of how do we incorporate or how do we create something like the Bill Drill Challenge, but how do we do it with PCCs? And the reason that we have this conversation started is because your Instagram handle is Cobra Jack. Guys should be watching that. Because you're laying down 7-yard clean bill drills from the belt in 0.77 seconds. And that's pretty freaking nasty, man. My question, and I think where we start in this conversation is admittedly, that's not going to be competitive against somebody who's going to run it from a pistol out of the holster. And I think as soon as we acknowledge that, it's not necessarily going to be a PCC versus a pistol, or is there a way to create something like a start, like, let's say PCC on the table and hands somewhere. Is there a way to create something that maybe levels the playing field a bit? What are your thoughts on that?
I think you're absolutely right. If we want to compare rifle back to pistol, we're going to have to handicap it in some way because there's just too many advantages. You got guys like Isaac Lockwood that are getting really spicy with that scoop draw. They're going to get there, I think, on the presentation of a first shot like we would on a rifle. What I was playing around with was a laser and shooting off the hip, which I think is kind of silly, but it is allowed for in the rules of USPSA and the appendix, right? So I just wanted to see. I tried it out. It is way faster. The first shots are in the teens, and I don't see anyone with a handgun getting down to that. So the splits, these guys are, in the low, like 11s and 12s, just like we are. They're competitive there. It's all going to come down to that first shot. So I think you kind of have to handicap that first shot.
And I think that's where we are in this sort of a experimental process, because we've put out the sizzle reel and we've got the previews for the Bill Drill Challenge that we did at Carry Optics. That stuff is starting to make its way out there. And so I've obviously looked at all of that video, knowing that for a guy like a Billy Barton or an Isaac Lockwood or a Brennan Brennick to get into that 1-3 range out of the holster, that scoop draw beep to first shot number has to be somewhere in the 0.6, 0.7 range. And that for me then becomes, what does time frame look like if we say for PCC, in the event a PCC is gonna go up against a pistol out of the holster at some point? We've got the PCC. We have to get it out of your hands. That's the only way it can even be close to fair, is to get the PCC out of your hands. So then, where are the hands? Do we do a couple of touch points on a table potentially, or do we do standing with hands relaxed at sides and then you reach in and get the rifle? I want to explore that, because I think if guys with the speed that you have and the others who are out there start working on that, and they start to figure out what are the two touch points to get the rifle off the table. And one of the things that you and I had been kind of back and forth about is what does it look like if a guy gets the rifle off the table and then just shoots it from right there on the table? Meaning you might have a laser or you might point shoot it. Have you tried that after kind of our back and forth a couple of weeks ago?
Yeah, well, actually, so I started running a match up here in Oregon, a local club match, and, right away I got into stage designing and doing things the wrong way, learning from that. I created a stage that was starting off a table loaded, and it was essentially a bill drill. And we found that you had to be really careful with where that target was and if the rifle could be pointed at it, because if you don't specify the hands, you got the guy just hovering over the gun and he just flips the safety and sends 6. That's no good. So I don't know. I've seen shoot-offs where we've tried to handicap PCC with unloaded and cruiser starts and that kind of thing. That ends up PCC doesn't become very competitive at that point. It just takes so long to get the gun charged up and going. And then also you have guys that have integral bad levers, bolt releases, that sort of thing. That doesn't necessarily make the field fair, necessarily. I don't know. I guess what I'm thinking is we're both saying that a scoop draw might be in that 0.5, 0.6 range with the most spicy guys out there, and they are getting accurate hits. I mean, they're getting a good 5 out of 6 alpha a lot of times. I can tell you, I think a while back, Max Leo Grandis, national champion, undefeated in PCC, he, I believe, put down a sub 1 second bill drill not from the hip, I mean, from the belt up to shoulder. I can tell you that when I started working on traditionally from the belt up to the shoulder, what was my first shot, and it got locked in as fast as I could do it at like 0.52, 0.51. I think those guys are getting down there, so maybe if we just specify from the belt, like we do on almost every start in PCC, that we start to, get there with the fastest guys on pistol.
Right.
What do you think?
Well, and again, back to our conversation that the audience now doesn't have any, they don't have the reference, but the big thing that keeps coming up for me is from a visual standpoint for what I want to do for, make this thing look like something fun to watch, both for people who are competitive shooters and people who are just audience members that are enthusiasts. I want to make something that's entertaining. And the challenge lies in the fact that the whole series of events is over in less than 2 seconds. So there has to be some visual appeal. And the thing that I keep I don't want to rail too hard on the low ready start events within the steel challenge or within steel shooting, but there's definitely a big difference between low ready start and some kind of a draw or some kind of a manipulation. And that's kind of what I'm looking for. And maybe what we need to do is just separate from the idea that we're going to try to handicap the PCC to make it something that ends up being competitive against these guys who are scoop drawing their striker fired guns. Because I don't want to diverge here, but the point was made that those striker fired guns, like, in the case of Billy Barton, he's running an OZ, kind of a Glock clone, and, Isaac's running the SIG, and the guys who are competitive are all running striker fired. Nobody's running a 2011. Nobody's running anything with a beaver tail on it. I watched one of Billy's videos where he really goes in depth into how he gets kind of his claw grip on the gun. It's not a traditional grip and all of that. And so maybe we need to just kind of separate the idea that one day PCC and a scoop draw out of a holster might go head to head and just say, all right, this is only going to be PCCs. And how do we make it as entertaining as possible? How do we make it as visually appealing as possible? And that, for me, I think is the goal. Number one, make this thing broad appeal. But number two, maybe it's not a 6-shot bill drill on a target at 7 yards. Maybe it's a different drill altogether. Maybe it's, and I don't want to burn up a bunch of extra ammo. I like the idea of a guy can do 2 attempts and, might be able to do it out of 1 magazine and can do it for 12 rounds or whatever. Maybe it's something different, though. I just kind of want to open the conversation up, and that's what we're doing right now is we're going to put this out this afternoon, see what people think as we're coming into PCC Nationals. I've got a bay at CMP. I've got the go-ahead to do something, and I've reached out to a couple of industry companies. We'll see if I get any response from those. Obviously, it was a little short in time trying to get an answer like today, hey, can we do something? But I think as people start to see what we made out of the first go-round, know that we're going to do that again at iron sights for the pistols, maybe this thing can grow into something for PCCs, and I think that's the idea.
Yeah, I mean, would you be open to steel targets, like a plate rack?
So the problem with steel is the ultimate goal for this thing is to take it off of a traditional gun range and put it potentially into a live event venue with some kind of a portable bullet catching system that's a little more formidable than just a target backer bullet catching system. So That's broad scope. That's down the road. But if we were to say, for this one, if we were to say, okay, we're going to test, we're going to race the plate rack, it's not a bad idea. I mean, anything can work. Anything that's entertaining can work. My hesitance to jump on something mechanical when it comes to a target is, what if you have a target failure? What if you have, just to simply say steel has to fall to score, and we paint it every time and a guy has a good hit and the steel doesn't fall, are we going to go into calibration? Are we going to go into all of that? And I just don't want to establish a rule set that looks like that. It's easier if we have a target, and my friends at hdtargets.com come through again with some target centers from behind the line, and we get a group of people there, and you just hear some guns just ripping these fast splits. I mean, that draws people's attention. So what if we, and again, we don't have to make a decision here. What I want to do is open the conversation up with one of the fastest shooters. That's you. And everybody else who's in the audience, your audience, Shooting USA audience, the social media world, get in the comments and let's start this conversation about what would be an entertaining thing, not only to do, participate in, but also to watch. That's kind of where I want to go with it.
Yeah. I mean, well, how about a blink drill? Where it's basically a build drill, but you got 3 targets, you got some transitions, that adds a little more complication to it.
Right. The challenge there, and I think I don't want to keep pushing back on ideas because all these ideas are good. The challenge element there is if a guy comes up, or girl, and they're going to run their qualifying run, and now we need 6 targets for everybody to have 2 qualifying runs. So you come to the line, you got 6 targets. All right, 1 2 1 2 1 2. Okay, mark the time down. All right, next attempt, 1 2 1 2 1 2, and then we go and we repair targets. It's doable. There's room. There's room to do it. I don't know. I think that's where we start. Is I would like to get the gun out of hands. I think that's important from a visual standpoint. And however we mandate the start position, gun on table or gun on barrel, hands naturally at sides, hands above shoulders, wrists above shoulders, because there has admittedly been a little bit of a kind of a talking point about what we're doing with the Bill Drill Challenge with the pistols, because the original Bill Drill was designed, hands at surrender, wrists above shoulders. I simply took the model that Latham and Hennig put out in 2022 and said, let's just do that again. I didn't make the decision about who puts their hands where, what the starting position is, none of that. I just said, you guys did it in 22, and that's when Isaac Lockwood won it. I'm going to bring Isaac back, and we're going to see if somebody can beat him. And without burying the lead, if you watch the preview, you already know what happened. But that would have changed that playing field if we'd have changed where they're going to start with their hands. For this, it's a blank canvas, and I'm just making the motion that if the rifle is out of your hands, there's a piece of the puzzle that is grabbing the rifle, which is visually appealing. It'll either go really good or it'll go bad, or it might go bad and you might be able to save it, or whatever. Guy might, like you said, point shoot. So I think we're onto something, and I think the key element is we push this out in front of as many people who are going to be at PCC Nationals, or might be planning to go, or might want to go, or might think of a good idea, and we just take all of these ideas and throw them at the wall and see what sticks. I think that's the way to go. Yeah. Excellent.
Hey, another idea. What about 4 in the chest, 2 in the head? At that point, we have a much smaller A zone to get to, and we have to deal with offsets on the rifle.
I'm not mad at that. So, like basically a double Mozambique, like a 2-1, like a 1 2 3 4 1 2.
Yep.
Are we playing only the upper scoring A zone, or are we playing?
I was thinking
upper?
that. Yeah, dude, that A zone.
Now we're onto something. That's pretty rad. I like that. So let's say this: gun on table, target at 7 yards for this. That target's got to be at least 7 yards.
Oh yeah.
And it's essentially a double Mozambique. 4 to the center scoring zone, 2 to the upper scoring zone. Do it as fast as you can. You got to be clean to score. That's pretty cool. The double Mozambique. I like that.
Yeah, those 2 shots in the head, man, it can be tough. Yeah.
Well, there's another element there as well for the pistol drill. In 22, Isaac won it with a first shot in the upper scoring zone. I'm not going to bury the lead this time, but, it came back around. So both of the guys who have done it on the pistol front both agree that we need to remove the upper scoring zone for the pistol drill. and I'm inclined to do it. In this case, because this is completely different, and admittedly, we're doing this differently, it's a different platform, I think we leave it. I think you're onto something there. Jump in the comments. Give us an idea what you guys think. If you like this idea, a double Mozambique drill with the gun on the table, and then where to put hands. Do we put X's on the table? Do we just say hands naturally at sides with wrist below belt? I mean, that's pretty straightforward proposition, but I definitely like the double Mozambique. That's pretty rad. Yeah, that's a good one.
Cool.
I got a feeling you've done it.
No, I swear to God, I haven't done. I mean, I've done Mozambique drills, but I haven't played with this one yet. I was just trying to think of what would burn guys, because once again, being a match director, you start to do these evil human experiments.
Well, that's it.
How much you'd have to slow down to truly get the two alphas, not just the whole head, but the two alphas. And then a lot of us run risers and tall dots. I mean, there's a lot of offset at 7 yards. It's not easy.
Well, and I think if guys practice it, like they know this is going to be the drill, they have an offset or they have an offset compensation already set up. You know what I mean? They come to the drill at the end of shooting on, let's say, you know, if you got a morning session, you come through on Saturday before your afternoon session, or you come through on Sunday after your morning session, and you're done for the match, and you've already made your correction to your elevation, so you can just smack it right in there. Or maybe it'll be a guy who runs it with iron sights. You know what I mean? That's not off the table either. You know, if you look at steel challenge shooting, guys with iron sights in the PCCs and the rimfire long guns, they're every bit as fast. So I think it's exciting. I think we're onto something. Let us know in the comments what you think. Get involved, get out, you know, and we'll land on this thing once I know. You know, I mean, I've already got the big hurdle done, and that's for the USPSA to say yes, we'll give you some space to do it again. Obviously, we're going to make some changes to what we did in our first go around in carry optics. It ended up being successful, but we learn from each time, and it's going to get better every time as we go forward. We're not far from making something pretty dang cool out of this, and I think this is a way to get more guns involved, which means more industry support, more ammunition downrange, more people doing it. Jack, I don't know if we missed anything, but if folks want to get out there and try the double Mozambique, they need to tag you. They need to tag Shooting USA. Let us know in the comments if we're onto something. I think it's going to be fun, dude.
Yeah, let's do it. Sounds good.
Awesome, man. Thanks for the time. Enjoy the rest of your Friday.
All right, man. We'll talk to you later.